Hello and welcome to today's video. My name is Shay Madeline and I am an artist, a crafter, and also a hobbyist of all different kinds of hobbies. And on top of all that, at the time that this video comes out, I will also have very recently began my journey as a student teacher, as the new school year will be starting very soon. Now, if you have been following along my last few videos, you will notice that I have been taking my channel in a bit of a more whimsical and fantastical sort of direction. And now that I will be full-time student teaching, I think it's even more important for me to keep doing that. Because for me personally, I feel like it just makes me thrive and enjoy my life all a bit more. But additionally, I think it's also important to show you guys that even if you have a full-time job or another full-time commitment, you can, and in my opinion should, still find ways and times to be creative. Now with that super short spiel out of the way, we're just gonna jump right into the meat of this video, which is continuing that clay series that we've recently started of making clay little people to put around my house. Additionally, by the end of the video, I want to find names for those two clay mushroom guys that I have already made, as well as I want to also find a name for the whole mushroom universe that I have slowly been creating over time. So like any good project, I of course start out this project by sketching. My goal is to create at least two different kinds of animals that I can add into the mushroom universe, and these animals are going to act as both pets or just creatures that kind of run around the area, as well as one of them is going to be a mount for the mushroom guy that is like the toadstool type mushroom that you have seen before. I'll show a picture. And this mount slash just like friend of this guy is going to be the one that pulls any carriages that he needs, or he could, ride him like a horse if he really wants to. And that is who I am going to design first. Now because this guy is a mount, I wanted to make him pretty strong and pretty big, so I made him kind of a thicker frog. I also decided to design him after a strawberry frog, which is a kind of poisonous dart frog. My idea is that with the lore, the toadstool mushroom guy, who I will eventually name, he is a poisonous mushroom that he is based on. And this frog is a poisonous frog, so I was kind of thinking, which maybe this isn't the best idea, you guys should let me know your thoughts on this, but if the poisonous mushroom guy is poisonous, the other mushrooms aren't going to want to be around him. And this frog might have the same issue with the other frogs. So because of that, they're going to kind of pair up and be best buddies. And right here, right now, since I have the time, I'm going to name this little frog mount Sir Marmalade. I kind of just think it's a cute name, and marmalade is sweet like strawberries are. Now that that sketch is out of the way, I'm going to go ahead and move on and begin sculpting that frog guy, which again is Sir Marmalade. And I decided to pull out the other two mushroom guys so that I could kind of get an idea of scale, so I could make sure he wasn't too big but also not too small. And I think overall this is a pretty good size to go ahead and start adding clay. Now while I do like the method of taking some tinfoil and using that as the base of the project in order to save on clay, I find that I always struggle to use enough clay to like not have the tinfoil poking through, and it adds like lumpiness to it. So I might need to watch some tutorials on how to do that a little bit more efficiently, because I think I'm low-key just doing it wrong. While I am always able to get my clay projects to a point that I am happy with them, I feel like they don't have that cleanness to them that I kind of want. I feel like they look very beginner level, and I still love them, especially the clay guys behind them, the mushroom guys. But it is something that I would like to work on with especially the paint job as well as the clay sculpting, just to make everything look a little bit more clean and maybe a little bit more professional. Now by the end of this process, I do really fall in love with this frog mount that I'm working on, but I will say that he is very messy from start to finish. I think he has a little bit of like a cursed energy about him, but in my opinion that just adds to his appeal by the end. He definitely does not match the aesthetic of everything else that I have made up to this point, and even the other little creatures that I make after him in this video, but that doesn't mean I'm not happy with him, and I think he goes along well enough that I enjoy adding him to the team. Now this is what he looks like when he is basically done. I spent a lot of time trying to make his eyes look like they're actually in his head, and now I just have to go on and add his little mouth. Now I have to admit, I did not put in as much time as I absolutely should have to make sure that his mouth looked awesome and fit his body, but in the end it kind of adds that cursed energy I was talking about with him, so I think it's okay, even though it's very funky, and I definitely should have blended the lip into like his chin, which I did not do. But yeah, now here is that final clay sculpture of him before I paint him. Now that Sir Marmalade is done being sculpted, I am moving on to the next creature that I think is important to sculpt, and I'll actually be making 3 of these because they're pretty simple to put together pretty quickly. Now this little creature is going to be an isopod, or kind of like a roly-poly type of bug, and the idea is that these are going to be like the most common creatures that you would see running around in my little mushroom universe. They might be pets, they might just be wild and out in the woods, they might have little jobs like being mail carriers of some sort, but overall they're just going to be all over the place. The idea is that there's going to be a lot of them, and they're also going to be just very cute and also quite a bit smaller than the mushroom guys are, as they are meant to be, like I said, they're potential pets, so kind of think of them as being like cat size to us, but to the mushroom people. It did take some trial and error to figure out how to add the little details to these bugs, especially because they are so small, but overall they were really easy to make, and this is just the first one, but I'm able to whip up 3 of these really quickly. And the last step is also super easy. I just poke in some eyes and this first one is done. The next step in this process is to cook all of my little clay creations and make sure they can all cure in the oven. Of course, I'm sure they don't enjoy this part of the process, but it is super simple and easy, and I think it's so awesome that I'm able to do this with my own oven. The most fun that I have on these little clay projects that I have been doing is by far the painting, so I'm super excited that I'm finally able to jump into that. The frog especially I think is super fun because he has a lot of super bright colors, and that's not usually what I go with in my art. Usually I tend to go to pastels or muted colors, so I think that this is super fun to do. Because his design is mostly red with only a little bit of blue and black, I decided to go ahead and give Sir Marmalade just a fresh coat of red paint across his entire body, and that would give me a good place to start from. But even with just this one coat of red, I think he looks super awesome, and that red is also very, very good at covering, because I only had to do I think maybe 2 coats at this point, but he just looks awesome and super glossy, and I'm loving how he's looking so far. While I wait for that red coat to dry, I am going to go through and start painting my little bugs as well. In a similar way, I'm going to go through and just give them a whole coat of brown to begin with, and then I'll be able to add on the details after that. And now jumping back over to Sir Marmalade, I'm going to start working on the details, beginning with those black spots. Now those black spots are actually why a strawberry frog is called a strawberry frog, because the black spots kind of look like seeds of a strawberry. Now while these spots were pretty easy to paint, I also think that they probably took the longest, because if I had made a mistake, I would have to go back and go over the mistake with red, and I did that quite a bit just because my paintbrushes weren't probably small enough for what I was doing. But like I said, at least it was an easy process to get done. After finishing those black spots, I decided to start on my little isopod guys, and I didn't really have a very solid plan going into this, which I think you'll see kind of causes me some issues. So I started out by painting all of their bellies this lighter brown, which really was just kind of gray looking compared to the warm brown I had done previously. And then my idea was to go in, and in between each of those stripes, I would kind of blend out that brown to add a little bit of detail. But in the end, I didn't like how that looked, so I ended up scrapping that idea. I decided to go over the little guys in a lighter brown than the one before, and then I went in with the eyes right away to kind of get a feel for how the face would look like. I then did the same thing I did before, where I went over the belly with a lighter color, but this time I used a much more, in my opinion, correct color, I guess. I used like a yellowy brown, and I thought that went much better with the new brown that I decided to go with. I then, instead of going over the big fat parts of the lines, I did the grooves and the grooves only with that same lighter color, and in the end I thought that looked so much better. After cleaning up all those lines, I went through and for a final touch I added a little dot of white in their eyes, which I think makes them look just so cute. And now here are all 3 of my bugs after they're done being made, and I just love all of them. Now it seems that I either lost some footage or just forgot to record this in the first place, but I went through and I painted the hands and the feet of Sir Marmalade blue because that is another distinct feature of the strawberry dart frog. It was pointed out to me that he kind of looks like Spider-Man if Spider-Man was a frog with these colors, but I think I'm okay with that. I think he's a little bit goofy, and usually I would kind of beat myself over how he looks, but I think that he's just perfect just the way he is, even though he's a little bit funny. Now with the eyes, I went through and I started painting them white. I will say I kind of struggled with how small the area was, and I didn't have a small enough of a paintbrush, and the paint got a little bit chunky because of that. It was a little bit too thick of a layer I was putting on, but I was able to clean it up to a point I was happy with at least. I then gave him some lovely little pupils so he can stare at us, and then I went ahead and I started putting a clear coat of Mod Podge on him so that if he gets kind of scuffed against or whatnot, it'll hopefully protect him and protect the paint as well. Now I also did add this clear coat to the little bug guys as well, but I did not show that on camera just because they were so small it wasn't very fun to watch anyways. So first, here are the 3 finished bugs all together, all 3 isopods. Now I'm going to name them from smallest to largest as Pip, Mochi, and Chonky. Now the last one is a little bit because he is the biggest. Mochi is actually a girl, and then Pip is the smallest and he is a boy. I think that they were super fun to work on, and if I was to ever make them again, the only thing I would really do differently is I would make sure to have a plan before I went into painting so that the paint didn't get so chunky from all the layers. And now here is Sir Marmalade hanging out with his best friend, that toadstool mushroom man who is also a wizard. And since we've kind of been on a roll with giving everyone a name, I think that today we're gonna finally name this guy. I'm thinking that his name should be Sporlin, which is like the word spore and the name Merlin mixed together, and then his title can be the Crimson Cap, and he can be the kind of scary but not mean wizard that kind of watches over the land with all the mushroom people. And now that is where I'm gonna leave this video for today. I am super happy with how everything in this video turned out, as well as how everything in this whole series has been coming together in general. I just love the overall mushroom universe, and I'm excited to see how it grows. Now if you enjoyed what you saw today, please do consider liking and subscribing, as well as maybe commenting what you would want to see in the future. And on that note, I just want to say I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, and I hope you can go forth and fill the rest of your time with as much creative whimsy as you possibly can. Thank you, and I hope to see you in my next video. Bye bye!